This is episode number 19 of DevOpsParadox with Darin Pope and Viktor Farcic. I am Darin.
And I am Viktor.
We decided to go ahead and do one more podcast while we're still sitting here warmly next to each other. Viktor has his Pepsi, his drink of choice. Well, his non-adult drink of choice, I believe.
Yeah, anything with sugar and caffeine combined is good.
Okay. And I have a chamomile tea. And it's only 3:15 in the afternoon as the time we're recording, so I'm already winding down for the day. 3:15 with chamomile. We came up with one more thing to talk about since we're here, and it's around the topic of hackers versus developers. Why do we want to talk about this? Because I tend to align more on the hacker side than the developer side. But let's define what each of these things mean first.
Yeah, so in this context, I don't literally mean hackers, trying to break your system, stuff like that. It's more that I always look at a lot of projects. I go through code, I try to contribute and, do the good stuff. And I continuously get frustrated how people just keep adding cool new features that are unsustainable, untestable, cannot be improved by others. Then every once in a while I hate my life because I spent 3 hours trying to figure out something that is supposed to be very, very simple. I imagine the situation when you want to put a tiny contribution somewhere, something that should take like 15 minutes, and then you end up 3 hours and still not cleverer than you were before because the code is horrible, or there are no tests, or it's not documented, and things like that. And I would call people who do those things hackers, kind of like you're just adding cool new features because you like doing that without really thinking how that affect others, how will others work on that, how they will maintain it, will anybody understand. But yeah, you spend 3 hours hacking something. Maybe you create a cool video showing how nice your new feature is, and you think you're done. And that is very frustrating to me.
Boy, that sounds like my life. Now, I will admit, there's a part of me that enjoys that part of development, right? So I'm going to use the word development here just as a high-level thing, not developer.
Yeah.
Well, let's define what a developer does that is different than a hacker.
Writes clean code that can be understood by others, writes tests so that he can validate the features, and others will be able to contribute by running your tests and validating whatever they're adding. Document stuff so that others can understand what's going on, and so on and so forth. I would say that a good developer is a person who thinks about others, not only himself. I just came up with that. But that sounds reasonable, I think, as a definition.
It could be a little harsh. So let me see if I can soften it just a little bit and still drive home the point. A hacker is concerned about getting the thing done without thinking about the long game of what all it may entail.
Exactly. If you take real hackers, not the allegory that I'm using right now, their job is to basically break into the system, do the damage, and doesn't matter what will happen with that code or whatever they did, because that's a one-time deal, right?
Right.
It's not... Hackers, by definition, are not creating something sustainable, but very temporary with certain effect. And I'm not saying that breaking is what allegory of hackers is doing, but unsustainable results, that's a similarity I would find between hackers among developers and hackers as a real profession. It's not a profession, I don't know.
Well, I actually have some friends that it is a profession, but I can't mention their names, otherwise I may not be alive to the next episode.
It's like a superhero. You can't
reveal
the
anything.
identity.
No. But with that in mind, so we've made our definition. For those listening, you may disagree with the definition, but this is our podcast, so our definition rules at the moment. Does a hacker, it's two-sided question, does a hacker make a good developer? And does a developer make a good hacker?
I would say that it's probably easier for a good developer to do some hacking. I mean, everybody does sooner or later. You want to prove some concept, you want to try out something. So in that direction, I think it's relatively straightforward, easy, and so on and so forth. But in the other, no.
Because it would be a bigger leap to go.
I think that being a good developer requires more skills than hacking. Hacking might be a subset of, from skill point of view, a subset of what the developer does, right?
A hacker may be, let's use some percentages, a monster 95% coding and 5% communication. Whereas a developer is maybe not as great of a coding genius. They're, call it 50, 60%, but they're 40% good at communicating what that thing does, or excuse me, 30% communicating what thing does, and 10% thinking about, okay, what's the long-term play on this?
Yeah, exactly. With the additional note that it's not about coding, it's about writing clean code that is maintainable, readable, whatever.
But understanding where that line is, because sometimes you can go too far in that direction. And when I'm writing tests for getters and setters, I've gone too far in the other.
Yeah, that's the other extreme. That's bordering ridiculousness. Right. But and now thinking aloud, what is actually that there is a third and the worst scenario, I think, or a group of people, is when managers are converting developers into hackers. We need this new feature with an unrealistic deadline of 2 hours from now, and then a month from now I'm gonna blame you for that failing, producing bugs and stuff like that. But when people are pressuring developers to release or do something in a way that is unsustainable or with a very low quality and so on and so forth,
expecting it to be normal.
Yeah, because you're a manager, you have your project, you're measured by how fast your project gets to production, and then somebody else will maybe manage the next project on that same software, so it's not your problem type of stuff.
That is a third, and there's, I'm sure, variations on that one as well, but it's that outside pressure back towards, we'll call it a developer or a hacker.
Because one thing is that I can equally argue that maybe it's hard to be a good developer. Maybe it's not that I want to be a hacker and then just do things kind of half baked. Maybe I do like that because I don't know better. That might be the reason. Yeah. But now insisting from a management perspective for people to do that and telling them that's okay. And then on the other direction, us not saying that that's not okay, that's a real problem.
So sometimes you might have a well-intentioned hacker I think you have to have both in an organization. I think there's value, let me rephrase that. I think there's value in having both hackers from an R&D perspective, but then it's also great value from a development standpoint to where it's just the people that are willing to do the day-to-day, we'll call it mundane type stuff. Because they enjoy, I'm not going to call it maintenance, but they may be doing new features and stuff that have been already fleshed out by the upstream hackers. It's like, okay, is this going to work? Is this okay? Hey, go spike this for a day or 2 days. Come up, give us 2 or 3 options, right? A developer typically is not going to be wired that way, whereas a hacker, that's their bread and butter.
Yeah, so that we should all try to, in a team, in an organization, we should all try to use people in the best way possible. People should do what they do well, and that does not mean that everybody should do everything. So it's perfectly okay for somebody to do R&D, for example, somebody to convert that into sustainable code and so on and so forth. That's all okay. That's a team effort.
Right.
What is not okay is when you do not realize that and then there is not all the tasks are done. Right, kind of. If I do something quick and then you convert that something quick into something sustainable, that's good.
Yes.
If I do something quick and I'm a hero of the story and nobody comes and does anything after me, then either I should have done better, or somebody else should realize that what I'm doing is only part of what needs to be done.
Right. This is the classic Excel spreadsheet turns into a production database.
Exactly.
Scenario. I hacked together something to make it work, and then all of a sudden it becomes operational, and it was never meant to be operational. But now it's...
And there is never budget to make it operational.
Correct. But you have to keep it operational.
Exactly.
And it's the dog chasing their tail in circles. It's just, that's completely unsustainable.
Exactly. And I'm saying all that not for the goodness of my heart and stuff like that, but because I see over and over again how companies are struggling with high costs of maintaining their stuff. So I'm really saying this from the point of view of reducing costs. So I'm thinking about the business makers, right? Kind of how much short-sightedness ends up being impediment for business people to do business. Because suddenly, typical thing, and I ask sometimes people, like a silly question, how much does it take to change a label on your application and deploy to production? And then you get a story that, we have a monster application, nobody understands, there is too many processes, it doesn't work, there are no tests and stuff like that, around 2 weeks to change a label. And I'm not exaggerating, there are companies that are actually following the standard process, changing a label takes 2 weeks, sometimes 3 months.
Mm-hmm. Well, it takes 2 weeks to change it, even though it actually only takes about a minute to change it. Because of how the release cycle, it's 2 minutes, or 2 weeks. But then that 2 weeks then gets on the train, or whatever your phrasing may be in your company. But then it has to go through integrated dev, UAT stage until you finally get to prod, which is, at that point, if it's 2 weeks chunks, you're 10 weeks out from changing a label. Where's the value in that?
There is no value. I mean, there is value, obviously, but the return of investment of that value is very, very low, non-existent, and negative number and all those things.
It just seems silly at times. But then this is the danger of being, I believe, a good hacker. As you prove yourself as a good hacker to a business unit, and they expect that same turnaround from everybody else that works within that group, that may just be developers.
Because everybody else is measured by your ability to churn something very fast.
Yeah. And that's a danger for the business.
Extreme. Exactly. Because you have something that simply doesn't work.
But the reason why it's a danger for the business is the business didn't understand the difference between a hacker and a developer.
But if you put yourself into shoes of a business person, then actually I would fall for that as well. If you tell me, look, give me half an hour and I can give you this shiny new thing that you can sell for a lot of money.
Business person's going to take that all day long.
Give it to me, baby.
Yep. And rightfully so.
Yeah, of course.
But the business person hasn't actually counted the cost of what that really means.
Exactly. That's why we have people in between business and then hackers that are capable of making more informed decisions and digesting the information before it is given to business.
Yeah. So how do we help? So let's talk about it this way. How do we help hackers become better developers? Not saying that they should, but what are maybe the 1 or 2 extra things that a hacker could know? And what should developers do to be able to hone their hacking skills so they can move a little bit left? Let's say the hackers are left and the developers are right. How can the hackers move just 1 step right, and how can the developers move just 1 step left, or expand their reach 1 step left?
I mean, to begin with, not necessarily that needs to happen. Right. As long as the team does the right thing, then I don't care that much anymore who's left, who's right, or whether everybody's in the middle as long as the end result is that. If it's not, then we have a problem. Now, thinking aloud, I'm not sure how to help. What I do know is what not to do, and that is to take a systems architect or software architect to guide everybody into 57 pages of diagrams for architecture design to do everything right. Put hibernate and spring this and do that, and so that.
I'm staring off blankly into the distance because that's everyday life for most every large company.
Yeah. But then you end up with a solution where actually nobody can be a hacker because the smallest possible imaginable feature can take days or weeks to do because you need to go through all the paths and all the rules and all the nonsenses that somebody designed. Now, disclaimer, I don't think that every architect is a bad person, just to clarify. But more often than not, when I see those diagrams, what is my favorite is those people who were developers, then they climbed the company ladder to become architects, and that was the day that they marked in their calendar as the last day I ever write any code. From now on, I'm doing diagrams. Yeah. Those are the bad people. You stay away from them.
When the only tools an architect knows is Visio and Word, that's danger. To me, a system architect or whatever it is, those people should be the greatest hackers of them all.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, hey, here's an idea. Maybe there's no set. Hey, let's pass this around. What do you guys think? Can we actually make this stick? Right? Because then they still have the chops. They're still able to do work instead of sitting in meetings 8 hours a day.
That's why I don't accept as an option to have a full-time architect. To me, that's a part-time job. You're a developer who happens to spend part of your time designing architecture and so on and so forth. That's the most experienced developer that still develops but guides his less experienced teammates towards a better solution.
May not be a hacker level developer, may not be that 95 know the internals of every VM that ever existed, but they're functional.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, okay, I can get something done.
Because what is happening otherwise, if all you're doing is drawing diagrams, then you don't know how your decisions are affecting the people who are going to have to implement it because you're not doing it.
Right.
That would be like designing cars without having a driver's license.
I'll go with that one. I'm sure that happens all the time, though. But I think it's the key part. And we've sort of moved, this has really meandered to a very interesting place right now, that hackers are a good thing, done correctly. Developers are a good thing, done correctly. Different skill sets, typically, both very valuable. But now we're throwing an architect under the bus because architects typically, the ones I've seen a lot recently, are not technical.
Yeah.
They used to be 20 years ago.
If you want to draw things, become a painter.
But you can't do painting in Visio. Well, I guess you can. I don't know Visio, so it's like I still know as long as I've got VI, I'm good.
Exactly.
But that's an interesting thought. A system architect that doesn't know how to code. Where is their value?
No, I don't think that there are many architects who do not know how to code. Almost all architects coded and
currently know how to code.
Exactly.
That's the key part. Even if your old language was PHP, Perl, Python, don't care. Can I get a good prototype going with whatever it is, knowing that it's going to get handed over, I'm going to air quote handed over, to people, whether it's another set of hackers to sort of take that concept a little bit further to where it eventually gets operationalized, or you just hand it to the operational people to figure out. It's like, you got to be kidding me, you're old, right? You did Python or Perl, whatever. And they flip it into Go, or it doesn't matter. But to be able to give over that, hey, this is what I'm going for. can this make sense? That's a valuable architect.
You know, once I was kicked out of a company, actually.
Politely or impolitely?
They were not very happy with what I'm going to say. So visiting them, and they tell me, our system is not the latest, most up-to-date it can be. I said, no, I know perfectly well your system. You don't need to tell me anything about it. You just need to tell me, when did you become a systems architect? Because that's the year your system
stopped
evolving. Because that's the year when you stopped coding, and then you started recommending other people what to do based on your knowledge and experience until that point.
Right. Which, now I'm going to step off the deep end. Day job is consulting. That's what I do. I go from client to client. That's also a scary thing, because I'm not doing day-to-day development anymore, unless I force myself to do it.
No, but I don't either. That's normal. I'm not saying that everybody, no matter what you do, should write some code 8 hours a day, every day a week. And that's not what I'm saying. Okay. Because of course you become architect, consultant, whatever you are, not full-time developer 100%, right? But that's not coding 8 hours a day is not the same as I'm not gonna touch code ever again in my life. That's not the same. Like, you're a consultant, I'm pretty sure that you go and help them write pipelines or this or that, right? Yeah. Maybe some script, whatever, right? So you're not losing touch with code. Some architects do.
Right.
I'm also not coding 8 hours a day. That's a fact, but it's not that I decided never to write anything ever again.
Can we agree, though, we don't ever want to be on call 24/7 ever again?
No. It's not that I don't want to be on call. I will not be on call.
Yeah. Okay. What else can we talk about hackers versus developers? And developers? We did versus. What about and? We talked a little bit about the and, where hackers are great at getting the thing going.
No, I'm divided on that question or thought, because to me let's change the subject and say developers versus testers, right? Can developers and testers coexist and produce something really good? Definitely. I don't see a good reason why not. Have I seen it in practice? Not really. Rarely. Because such divisions, I think, produce teams or people who are very kind of almost, maybe superficial is not the best word, but people who only do their part and don't think about the rest. So I'm yet to really see a team where developers and testers are fully separated, and that results in something really good.
Because usually they're reporting up to two different structures.
Yeah, exactly. Because naturally that becomes different departments, different structures, stuff like that. The best teams I've worked with are the teams where developing and testing is the same thing. There might be some separate tester, but maybe one tester for 20 developers or 10 developers that's doing maybe something very high level of system level or maybe exploratory testing. But in successful teams I've seen, you develop, you create tests for what you develop, and that works. I'm not saying, I don't see a real reason why the other way around wouldn't work, but I haven't seen it in practice. And that's why I'm not sure whether hacking and then developing, just to kind of invent the terms right now, I'm not sure whether that would really work for those same reasons. Because then you would say that actually a developer in that context is a person going behind the hacker and cleaning his mess.
But see, that's dangerous.
Exactly.
Because that's not what they're doing.
Exactly. So it's more likely that they will be kind of like, let's say, two persons with different skill sets working on separate stuff, on their own stuff, on different features, and then it's half of those features will always be half-baked, unless you convince the other one to actually go in behind you and clean your mess.
Right. So it's the question of, if that's the path that you as a business believe it should be, then I think we're in agreement that that's incorrect thinking. If you're going to employ those hackers, then let them be considered, these are just best guess efforts. Yeah. And if it just so happens that you can take what they started with and flip it into something operational, great. You saved a little bit of time. If not, it's a reference material.
Or maybe hackers should be employed as working on spikes.
Yeah.
Kind of like do something, prove that it works, throw it to trash.
Yeah.
And then we start over from scratch.
And see where it goes again.
But you prove that's a good concept, that's a good feature, stuff like that, and we start over. That might work better than leaving that code there and expecting that somebody is going to
pick it up and take it to the next thing. Yeah. It really is more of a design concept. A hacker is more of a design concept than it is a operational concept.
R&D.
Yeah, it's just R&D. Well, it's more than R&D done correctly. If you I'll use the words incorrectly here. If you can operationalize your hackers to where you know their boundaries, they understand their boundaries, not that you're going for boundaries, and you get those extra things that make sense to actually ship the door to end users, sweet. It's good leverage. But even if you don't, having a great hacker on staff or hackers on staff allows you to test ideas really, really fast. What you can't assume is that those ideas are actually going to make money.
But then that would be going back something similar to what I said for testers. Then maybe that should be a relatively small percentage of people, kind of maybe one person, and then there are 20 people who do
the we'll call it the real work.
Exactly. I mean, it's not really what are real, but real development, or whatever you want to call it.
Operational. There's got to be a better phrase for this, but it's the people that all the other stuff around it, the testing, documentation, all the stuff to where it can be. You hate this word, I don't like it, but it's the safe development route. Yeah. It's something that we can sell and not have support tickets opened up all the time, not have legal issues brought up against us, all these things. Whereas the hacker's just like, here's an idea. Let me stay up all night, crank it out. What do you guys think? Great. All right, this is the Excel spreadsheet again. Hey, it works. Great. All right. Now we're going to start earning payroll through that. What? No. Right, and that's also, I believe, the responsibility of the hacker to reinforce that point. Hey, look, this is just something I've thrown together. I don't believe this is, it may be stable, but it's stable for this one really niche use case here.
Yeah. So either that person knows that what he or she is doing is unsustainable, unstable, or we as organization kind of like say, no. We love you, man, but whatever you do is not going to production.
Not in its state. It's not going out there.
Yeah.
Okay. How do you feel about this one? Do you think we talked? Do you feel more calm right now after talking about this?
No, I always feel calm.
I have my chamomile tea, so I'm actually extra calm right now.
I have my sugar, though. No, it's like, I believe that every role has its place. It's just that most of the time we misunderstand the numbers of the amount of people that should be put in roles. So testers is a good example. Should be small percentage of testers compared to everybody else. Same thing for hackers. So it's every single role that is invented in the software industry has is usage. It's just that we need to understand how to use those roles and how many people should be in those roles. I mean, maybe the best example of hackers would be traditional sysadmins. Actually, they are the best examples of hackers.
Absolutely, because they're the ones that have to deal with the mess anytime, and they've got to just get it fixed.
Yeah, and I SSH into a server, I fix it, nobody knows what I did. Nobody can reproduce what I did, but I made it work.
And that's
when I
the
say
danger side.
sysadmins, I mean those that did not discover Terraform, Ansible,
Whatever,
and
yeah.
stuff like that.
Right, but that's the other end of the line. We've been talking about more on the development side, idea side. Now we're talking about the hackers that try to keep systems running. Those are probably the most scary hackers of them all.
Yeah, because you can say, you can put it into, look at it from two different directions. You can say, oh, you just SSH into a machine and fix the problem. Or you can say, because you're SSHing into a machine, that's why we have a problem.
Exactly. Well, this goes back to Phoenix Project, and this is Brent and Phoenix Project.
Exactly.
Right. I think it's probably the first time we really talked about Phoenix Project. I don't remember talking about it
first
before.
time. That's very surprising. Actually.
Yeah, we got 19 in before we mentioned this Phoenix Project. But that was the Brent scenario. It's like, everybody's on the Sev 1 call, been up all night, then all of a sudden, hey, it's working. What's going on? Brent? Oh, yeah, I just fixed it. What the heck? I think Gene Kim was very polite in how he used his phrasing there, because in the writing, I would have probably been a lot more expletive than Gene was there.
Yeah.
And the other people that wrote on Phoenix Project, please forgive me on that. But to me, those are probably the most dangerous, because the stuff's already live.
Exactly.
That might be another good topic for another day. We talked about the front end of everything. Talk about the sysadmins later. That's
gonna be that episode will be the second episode you're gonna put as adult
explicit, or the explicit
exactly.
content, yeah.
Oh yeah. I can't wait for it. I want to.
That's fine.
About that.
We can do that, and I'll go ahead and just get the checkbox ready for that, just so it makes Apple happy and no 13-year-olds are harmed in listening to it, which is fine. It's we never purport to be a family show, and that's okay. But we'd like for you to be able to listen to it in the car with your kids, because don't you want them to be a hacker when they grow up? Or maybe not. All right. So, quick wrap up on that. Anything around that? So I think we talked about it pretty well. It feels.
Yeah.
And
I have nothing else to tell to you, man.
Yeah, and we have a backlog item to talk about the other side of this.
Yes.
Is it at the end of the train of how sysadmins could be? I'm trying to make the title up in my head, and it's not going to work. But how sysadmins can either be a friend or foe.
And statistically, they're more often a foe than a friend. No, sorry, no. Let me correct that. Statistically, they are much more of your friend than security department. We need to speak about them afterwards.
So we have security and sysadmins.
Yes.
Now, I have worked both, so I can be equally offended by both, so it doesn't really matter to me.
There you go.
Right, so that's not the role I'm currently in day to day, so that's okay. All right, so Viktor's new book, DevOpsParadox, coming out soon. Last time I looked, this one is scheduled to drop. This episode is scheduled to drop around, I think it's September 4th, when you're listening to this.
Should be out
I think it's September 4th. So I've seen it on Amazon. I think it said September 9th, but I don't know. So if you're listening to this on September 4th or later, it may already be out. If not, it's coming probably within the next week or two, unless Packet pushes it out again. Whatever. Okay. Also, 2.6 of Toolkit's coming out. You said you're still targeting end of October-ish time frame.
Yeah, something like that.
Because you got that new feature that was available.
I promise, and this is kind of a scout's honor, it will be there before DevOps World in Lisbon. 100%.
Yeah,
yes.
And that's December, in first or second week of December. I don't remember the exact dates on that. Yeah, so it's gonna be, so that basically what you're saying is that's gonna be part of your talks in Lisbon.
Yes, I'm bringing books with me.
Like physical?
Like physical. That's why it needs to be done at least a month before that.
Because you need so you'll be signing books in Lisbon.
I hope so, yeah.
Maybe. If not, you'll find him out in the hall, and he'll be saying, "Hey, $20. Here's a book. You want it signed or not? That'll be another $50."
There you go.
And if you have any questions or comments about this episode, you can reach out to us on the Slack team, DevOps20. That's the DevOps, the number 2 and the number 0. Sign up for a free account. The link is down below in the show notes. Join the podcast channel. You can ask us questions. This episode wasn't necessarily a question and answer one. We had one previously. We've had quite a few recently. Please keep the questions coming. It helps because we run out of ideas, and sometimes we have to say no to certain ideas because...
Not only that, but because if we come up with our own ideas, we are more likely to offend people we know and speak about subjects where people recognize themselves.
I hope that everybody recognizes themselves somewhere in something that we say.
But I
good,
hope that
good
I
or
don't
bad.
know those
Yeah.
people.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
It's sort of, again, we'll go ahead and mention Phoenix Project again. If you don't see yourself in most of the characters in Phoenix Project, you've probably not worked in an IT shop.
Oh yeah, you're a ghost. You're not a person.
Because those are things are just all right. Links to the books are also down in the show notes. Anything else? Final words.
That's cool. We're finished and I can go drinking.
Dude, it's not even 4:00 yet.
Yes, in my country
It's always 4:00 in your country?
exactly.
Okay, there you go. Thanks again for listening to episode number 19 of DevOps Paradox.